My dog was medically retired at 4 years old, and that's what started this whole thing. Welcome to the Raw Dog Training Podcast. I'm your host, Derek, canine nutritionist, dog trainer, and police canine handler. Here we talk about real food and real training for the real world with one goal in mind: restoring your dog's primal health and purpose. My first canine partner was medically retired at only 4 years old, and that's where this whole thing starts. When I first got into canine, I didn't know what I didn't know. I'd had dogs my whole life, pets, basic training, nothing crazy. But I never worked a real working dog. Cezar was my first. He was an 80 to 85 pound Czech German Shepherd. Jet black, beautiful dog, powerful. He had some quirks, and honestly, they made sense. This was right in the middle of a big nationwide turnover in policing. 3 handlers in a row got out of law enforcement with him while they were working him. So in 2 years, I became his 4th handler. That matters, because he'd been set up in the kennel, not getting work consistently for a good bit. He got exercise, sure, but he didn't have real structure. He didn't have real purpose. He didn't have that consistent relationship that a working dog should have with their handler. Then I got him. And if you ever met me, you know when I take something on, I go all in. I want to be the best at it. So I started learning. I was working with him, asking questions, talking to the guys who'd been there for a while, trying to absorb everything. I got addicted to it. I really enjoyed it. Cezar was a tracking machine. To this day, I still believe tracking is more genetic than a lot of other things, and a lot of people believe in. No matter how good you are at training, some dogs naturally want to do it more than others, and he was one of them. Being a bigger dog, he wasn't crazy athletic, but to me, he seemed decently healthy. He was the hardest biting dog we had. Deep grip, good activation, strong bark. He was pretty good at detection too. And I absolutely love this dog. Fortunately, I only got to work him for 1 year. Nothing crazy happened, nothing abnormal, no incident. But I started noticing him getting stiff, limping. And real early on, he started having difficulty getting into the truck. So I took him to the vet. And the vet said he had excessive arthritis, inflammation, hip issues, dysplasia. And all of it was basically attributed to the fact that he was a working dog, his breed, his size. This was all normal. And he had to be retired at 4. Even then, I didn't think that was normal. But I didn't really question the vet. I didn't really question the system. I questioned myself. What did I do? Did I overwork him? What did I miss? What did I screw up? And I couldn't point to anything really specific. We're not a super busy agency. He did his job when I asked him to. He got 1 good street bite. And when I asked him to defend me and the other deputies, he did it. He bit, he held, he did his job. And he did some amazing tracking. Evidence gathering, sealing cases, found clothes, found stolen gun. Nobody else even knew there was a track there. He pulled himself to it and started backtracking from something we didn't know about. And that's when I started realizing how powerful these dogs are with a good relationship, good training, and those natural abilities. And I didn't get to see him through with it. We'll get into this later, because I believe that relationship between man and dog is deeper than people want to admit. I believe it's spiritual, and I'll talk about why I don't believe dogs evolved randomly from wolves. And I'll give an opposing theory towards the end. But for now, just understand this. Cezar getting retired at 4 planted a seed in my mind, and that seed never stopped growing. At the time, I thought Cezar was just bad luck. I didn't realize yet he was the beginning of a pattern. It took almost an entire year before I could get another dog. One dog our vendor had started working up was almost finished. I was getting videos of a tall, big, good-looking Malinois named Loki. I was super excited. Then we got a phone call. They told us that the dog had a rare disease. He couldn't maintain weight. His body would not absorb protein properly. And they asked us if we were willing to keep him on medication for his entire life. Understandably, the agency declined. So they started a new dog. I found out that dog Loki dropped dead about 4 days after that conversation. Eventually, I got given a single-purpose German short-haired pointer, a gun detection dog. I got her about a year and a half old, and I did most of the training with her myself. Due to a mix-up, I got to handler school pretty early, so I got to help out with imprinting, early training, and stuff that normally doesn't happen until after a handler is already there. She was a good dog, and at that age, you don't really see health issues. Young dogs are resilient. I worked her for about a year, but always in the back of my mind, I wanted to get back to patrol dogs. Shepherds, Malinois, tracking, apprehension. Because hunting bad guys with a dog is one of the most primal things you can do. So when I got an opportunity and somebody else wanted out, I took it and we swapped partners. And that's how I got Rocky. Rocky was a herder, a Shepherd Malinois cross. He had a cleft lip that gave him an intimidating snarl. We started working together. He's very high strung, ADHD, but savage in bite work. Real prey heavy, whiny hyena prey monster. And from what I was told, he had already broken one of his top canine teeth with his previous handler, PVC pipe. It's common practice for some handlers and methods, and it snapped. They heard it hit the floor. The vet checked the pulp, didn't see sensitivity, and basically told him to rock on. That dog got a street bite with that handler, his first bite, and he bit multiple times and wasn't fully committed on the suspect when the handler got to him. Not ideal, but not unheard of in a chaotic first bite situation. And then I got him. We trained and trained and trained. Then I got an opportunity with him for a street apprehension. He didn't engage well on that one either. At first, I looked at all the reasons: training history, equipment, certain gear not conducive to getting good bites on the body, like oversized bite suits. There's a lot of variables. I won't get into all those details here. But as I started fixing those issues, I kept coming back to the mouth. Maybe that tooth is bothering him. Maybe there's pain. Because I started noticing something else. He bled a lot when he bit. I didn't always see it on the suit because it's dark. But when I went back to a lighter jute sleeve, I realized he bled every time he bit. At first, I thought it was tongue bites. That happens. Sometimes they accidentally bite down on their tongue, but I could never find the source. And then I realized it wasn't one spot. It was his gums. His gums would bleed. So I took him to the vet. The vet looked at the chart and said, well, this was the broken tooth, but this other top canine is broken too. When did that happen? I was honest. I had no idea. The broken tooth on the cleft lip side, you could see it all the time. The other one was covered up. So somehow, Rocky has snapped a second canine. Mind you, I didn't give him pipes. He had nothing to chew on with me but kibble, sleeves, and Kong balls. No hard objects. So we still don't know how it happened. And that's when it hit me. A dog's teeth, even on plastic, shouldn't snap like that. Canine teeth shouldn't break that easily. Bleeding gums, that's not normal. That's periodontal disease. Poor gum health, poor dental health. And that was just Rocky. Because around the same time, I started thinking about other dogs we'd had. We had a dog who was 9, not ancient, not super young, seemed healthy. He just dropped dead in the kennel. Less than a year ago, one of our best dogs, he was only 6 years old. Beautiful male, Dutch Shepherd, great patrol work, super clean, bomb dog, great obedience. He got sick and was dead within 3 days. Vomiting, diarrhea. The vet said they thought it was pancreatitis. Now, anything that ends in itis is inflammation. So that's inflammation of the pancreas. So I started doing research, and all these things were happening at once. And I started asking, is it the living conditions, the food, the water, something else? Then I looked at what we had those dogs on. Purina Pro Plan, gastroenteric, the prescription GI diet, low fat, about 10%. The idea is high fat can be a problem for dogs prone to pancreatitis. But these breeds typically aren't the classic pancreatitis breeds anyway. They're usually smaller breeds. But here's what got me. We were on a prescription diet from the vet to prevent pancreatitis, and then we lose our best dog to pancreatitis. That's when I started seeing what I hadn't wanted to see. We don't have nearly as healthy dogs as we think we do. So then I started looking outside of our world, meeting other handlers, getting into the civilian world, seeing all the breeds, seeing how common the same patterns are. That last dog, his entire life had loose stool. They said it was nerves when he first got there. Then they just accepted that that's how he was. But when you look at it, Cezar, arthritis at 4, Rocky, dental issues and bleeding gums, Luck, GI issues his whole life, then dead in 3 days. And then I asked about dogs before my time. And I found out dog after dog had been put down while still on duty. Cancers, degenerative disease, all kinds of things. That's when I decided I was going to go off on my own and find the information I was looking for. Real quick, there's going to be a lot of really good information coming out on this podcast. If you're listening right now, please give this podcast a follow on whatever platform you're on, and check out Raw Dog Training on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The more followers I get, the cooler my kids think I am, and I'd appreciate that. All right, let's keep going. For a little context, I didn't just wake up and start feeding my dog raw without knowing anything about it. You'd be surprised how much overlap there is between humans and dogs when it comes to diet, health, and the food industry. Almost 3 years ago, I transitioned to a primarily carnivore diet, and I didn't do it on a whim. I did about an 8-month deep dive into scientific literature, research, doctors promoting it. At the same time, I started studying the USDA and the FDA. There's a great book called Beyond Labels by Dr. McCullough and Joel Salatin that breaks down the verbiage used on labels, how words are used, how definitions get manipulated, and how crooked it can be without technically lying. So the reason I was able to shift fast with dogs is because I already knew how this game gets played with humans. It was an awakening. Of course it's like that for dogs, and in some ways, even worse. The same issues that drive humans into poor health are affecting dogs right now. Excessive carbs, which break down into starch and sugar, creating blood sugar spikes that drive insulin resistance over time, chronic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction. And when you zoom out, that metabolic stress is tied into the big diseases people see everywhere now. Diabetes, autoimmune issues, cancer, neurological problems, and behavior issues that people pretend are mysterious. In my 30s, I got into better shape than I ever was in my early 20s in the Marine Corps. And back then, I was eating complete garbage. Cigarettes and booze didn't help. Cutting that out helped too. But nothing compared to the jump when I cleaned up my diet and went animal-based. I realized if I'm trying to eat in a biologically appropriate way, how can I justify feeding my dog cereal out of a bag and calling it science? So when the dog issues started stacking up, I already had the lens. I already understood the human version of the scam. And it only made sense that dogs would be in the same situation. Most vets don't even realize they're being used inside of the kibble company system. And again, this is not vet bashing. Most vets are good people who care about animals. They're overworked. Veterinary medicine has one of the highest suicide rates of any profession. That's legit. This is a system problem. There are very few veterinary schools in the country compared to most other professions. And those few small programs are sponsored by kibble companies. Training materials, textbooks, sometimes even instructors in class. They donate the food to the schools and to the programs. So vets aren't even taught raw feeding in school because the curriculum is built around the kibble industry. One of the most popular textbooks is Small Animal Nutrition, written through the Mark Morris Institute. And if you look at their own website, they'll tell you the Mark Morris Institute is funded by Hill's Animal Nutrition. They can say non-biased all they want. That's crap. If you fund something, it's going to go in your favor. And then clinical practice often mirrors the human medicine. You go in, you describe symptoms, you get diagnosed, you get medicated. Symptoms are managed, but the root cause is never addressed. You see it constantly with gut issues. Dogs get antibiotics again and again for everything. Antibiotics wreck the gut microbiome, and then people wonder why the dog's gut problems never truly resolve. Now this leads into AAFCO, the Association of American Feed Control Officials. AFCO started as guidelines for livestock, animals you feed to grow fast, and so you can butcher them young. They grow fast and fat, so you can butcher them young. Not exactly what I want for my companion animal. Then around the 1960s, they built the pet food side, and now they lean on recommendations from the NRC, the National Research Council, connected to the FDA. Here's the part that blows people's minds. The NRC guidelines haven't been meaningfully updated since 2006. So when people scream about the latest science in kibble, a lot of that system's actually operating on nearly 20-year-old standards. And another thing people don't understand, the complete and balanced guidelines, they were designed for kibble, not for raw food. Kibble is not nearly as bioavailable as real food. It's processed, extruded, fortified, shelf-stable, so the system compensates with inflated nutrient targets. If a synthetic nutrient in kibble is only 20% bioavailable, then you need 5 times as much in the food to hit the absorbed requirement. So the standard becomes 5 times as much. But if that same nutrient is highly bioavailable in real food, like grass-fed liver, you don't need 5 times. You need the correct amount delivered efficiently. Labels can't distinguish bioavailability. They only see numbers. That's why there's no true raw feeding guideline right now. So commercial raw companies try to get AFCO complete and balanced on the label. And to do that, they often have to add synthetic vitamin and mineral packs to hit kibble-based numbers that don't even make sense for whole foods. That's how you can run into toxicity risks. That's another episode. Kibble dominates because it's cheap, shelf-stable, easy to ship, easy to standardize, and easy to regulate. And raw food doesn't fit that system. So the system favors what it can control, not what creates the best health. That's why marketing words like veterinary recommended, science-backed, complete nutrition, they get thrown around. A lot of it's made up, a lot of it's snake oil, a lot of them don't have real definitions, and it mirrors the human food industry, often worse. The internet is only a great resource if you know where to look and how to decipher good information. At this point, I'd gotten a puppy several months prior, and while I was going through all this, I had started feeding her raw, pre-made raw meals online. I was going to Facebook groups, the internet, and yes, ChatGPT. AI can be a great tool if you know how to use it. You can't just ask one question and accept the first answer. You keep asking, you refine the prompt, you demand citations and references because AI can hallucinate and just make stuff up. And the more you know about a topic, the more you see how AI can be wrong. So I started looking for formal education. Around this time, I started my TikTok channel, just showing what I was doing and why. It gained traction really fast. A couple posts went viral. I hit around 10,000 followers in only 2 months. And people started DMing me with questions. And I was transparent. I told them I'm not an expert. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm learning. If I don't know, I'll try to find the answer for you, or I'll just tell you I don't know. That pushed me to double down on my education. I started looking at certification programs. The first one I found was the Feed Real Institute. What I appreciated was simple. Everything was cited and referenced. I did their basic feeding certification, like a pet parent class. I did it at night, hour or two a night, took about a week. I learned a lot. It mirrored a lot of what I was doing, but expanded and I learned more. So then I started looking for the next level. And anyone who's researched raw feeding has come across Dr. Ian Billingshurst. He didn't invent raw feeding. Dogs have eaten this way since we've had dogs. But he took it mainstream for the first time decades ago. His book, Give Your Dog a Bone, moved the needle. And him being a vet brought other vets into it. Anything I do, raw feeding, firearms, whatever, I try to go to the source. I learn from people who were there at the beginning. So I went through the Billinghurst certification, lecture-based. It took me about a month of nonstop listening every free second, about 80-something hours of lectures directly from Dr. Billingshurst. Taking notes all day, every day. I learned a lot. But it didn't give me as many ongoing resources as I wanted for helping other people. So I went back to the Feed Real Institute and completed their professional program to become a certified professional canine nutritionist. Same model, but more depth. Tons of references and studies I could keep going and use and refer back to. There were quizzes, final exam, and a live workshop. That workshop was hands-on building meals in your kitchen on a live stream. That was the final step. And now, contrary to what some people comment, I don't worship credentials. I don't believe in appeals to authority. The information should stand on its own. But yes, I did this study this extensively, and yes, I continue studying every day. I also believe that there are no final experts. There's so much more that we don't know, and wisdom is being willing to admit that. Now that I've got that foundation, raw dog training is just getting started. This podcast is going to keep putting out free information to help people get started. I'm going to stay involved in answering DMs and questions and emails. And when the website launches, if you're still struggling to put it all together from short form content, there'll be options. Free resource guides on the website and paid custom meal plans built for you and your dog specifically. There'll be different tiers and different features and options. The more you pay, the less you work. The less you pay, the more you have to do yourself. That's life. You choose what fits your lifestyle and budget. Eventually, there will be an online course, a video start to finish, how to build the meal plan, store the food, prep the food, everything, so visual learners can follow it. Locally, I'm training dogs. That's what I love. So right now, it's mostly basic pet obedience while I'm still working full time. I love protection work. I love police dogs. But if I can get a client and build a dog that they can take everywhere, a real partner, that matters. And it becomes an opportunity to approach this holistically. Health through nutrition, health through clear communication, obedience, and eventually fitness. I'm looking at a physical fitness certification down the road. There's a good program through the University of Tennessee I'm eyeballing. It's hands-on. It's time-intensive. That will come when it comes. But the direction is clear. Proper nutrition, proper fitness, clear training. When you align all of that, you start to understand how primal the relationship between humans and dogs really is. And now I'm going to explain my personal belief about where dogs came from and why I don't buy the story we're being told. I don't believe dogs evolved from wolves. I believe God gave us dogs to serve mankind. Stay with me, all right? Just let me explain. And I want to start by saying this again. Whether you believe this or not doesn't matter. I'm not asking you to. And what works perfectly is the raw feeding model lines up with both frameworks, my belief system and the traditional evolutionary theory. If anything, the raw feeding aligns even more with the evolutionary model. So let's talk about why people say dogs evolved from wolves. The biggest misconception comes from a misunderstanding of what the DNA evidence actually says. People believe science says dogs evolved from wolves. It does not. That is a theory. What DNA evidence shows is that the modern dog and modern wolf share a common ancestor in the gray wolf. That does not give directional lineage. If I say Alex and Kyle share a common ancestor in James, what does that tell you? Nothing, except that somehow they're related. So people built theories around the common ancestor finding. One of those theories is domestication. The basic story is humans kill animals, take what they want, move on. Wolves come scavenge bones and decaying flesh. Over time, some get closer. Maybe humans capture pups. And eventually, villages create trash heaps and wolves feed off the piles, and the least fearful wolves stay and breed down into dogs. Sounds cool, but it doesn't make sense to me when you look at the timeline and the outcomes. Most versions of that story place domestication around 10 to 12,000 years ago and the agricultural revolution. So here's my question. How do you get, in that time frame, wolves going into Great Danes, Chihuahuas, Retrievers, Sight Hounds, protection dogs, all at the same time? It doesn't pass a smell test for me. What makes more sense to me is we've always had dogs. God gave us dogs, maybe not every breed, but broad functional types: hunting, retrieving, protection, small terrier type rodent dogs. Then when humans moved, you had strays and castaways just like today. Toy breeds don't make it in the wild. But what dogs do? Pointy-eared, athletic, shepherd Malinois-like dogs that already resemble wolves the most. If you know anything about dogs, you know how fast domestic dogs can pack up and become wild and dangerous. That doesn't take thousands of years. It can happen in one generation. So to me, it's more likely those castaway dogs became what we now call wolves, or at least fed into the wolf line. And that still matches the common ancestor data. And I also believe it's intentional that we're misled. The same worldview that wants you to believe you're a random accident, big bang monkey out of all of it, also wants you to believe the dog is just a random accident of evolution. But there is no other animal on the planet that prefers mankind to its own species like the dog. I don't think that's random. I don't think that's an accident. I believe we were cast out of Eden and we had dogs. I believe they were built with a purpose to serve mankind. And I believe dogs lose that purpose and lose their senses and abilities because of how they're bred, managed, trained, and fed. And I don't think that's an accident. You can call that conspiracy. You don't have to believe it. And I'm telling you what I think. And I reserve the right to change my mind when presented with new information. But whether you agree or not, it has nothing to do with the practical raw feeding and training info on this channel. It just explains why I'm passionate about it. Because I believe the relationship between man and dog is deeper and spiritual. And I believe we've lost our way. And I want to get back to making better dogs for a better world. If this episode made you think, here's what I ask. Follow the Raw Dog Training Podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Subscribe to the Raw Dog Training YouTube channel and follow Raw Dog Training on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. Share this episode with one person that you know that loves dogs. And most importantly, today, strike up one honest conversation with one person about raw feeding. And that's how this spreads. That's how dogs get healthier. And that's how the culture shifts. Better dogs, better world.